This is To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning. Today I'm joined by former local Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy and former local Republican Congressman Tom Rooney. They're candid about the impeachment case you've seen roll out and the uncivil state of our national discourse. So note, we did speak before the defense had begun its arguments on behalf of former President Donald Trump, saying he cannot fairly be blamed for the violence of January 6th. As the case wound, or is winding to conclusion, I asked if still in the House, would Rooney and Murphy have voted to impeach and send the case to a Senate trial?
Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be on the show again. If I was in the House, I believe I would have voted to impeach President Trump. The events of January 6th were unbelievable in the context of history for our country, that really happened, that the sitting president of the United States pushed so many followers, and not just on that day, years of lies and build up to that moment. We can't just let these things continue to happen and let people go without any sort of consequences. So I think it's important that the House make a statement. They did. The Senate's going to have its trial. We'll see where it goes. There's a lot of conversation about, can you even do this and the timing of it. Look, this started while he was a sitting president, right? This has been continued to be delayed by, Senator McConnell. So we'll see where it all lands. Big picture, Michael, I do think we have to heal as a country. I do think we have bigger, sort of topics to get to. But it is important that we hold people accountable in our country.
We'll talk more about that theme in just a moment. Mr. Rooney, were you still in the House? Would you have voted to impeach? And of course, all this against the backdrop, as I sit and talk with you both, we're waiting for the defense team for President Trump to make its case. We're having this conversation before that begins. But would you have voted to impeach Mr. Rooney?
I would have. And, as a former prosecutor, I know that people understand that there's certainly a difference between a House impeachment, which is more akin to a grand jury based on the evidence that you have at the time. It might not necessarily rise to the level that we might see in a criminal court proceeding beyond reasonable doubt or with full due process. But with the information that we had at the time, or that we would have had at the time had me and Patrick been in the House, I think that there was enough there to at least send it over to the Senate for them to consider more of the trial part.
Why so few of your former Republican colleagues do you think shared that view?
Well, obviously there's a lot of politics involved, and people are very afraid of upsetting our base. There's a lot of support still for the former president of the United States, as evidenced by the fact that the minority leader just went down to Mar-a-Lago, I think a week ago, to ask for his blessing to help move for the next election cycle. Even though we lost the presidency, the House and the Senate, there is still sort of a kissing of the ring going on. And quite frankly, a lot of Republicans are very nervous about upsetting that base. And all you have to do is look at the 10 or so Republicans that did vote to impeach. They're by and large getting censured by their state parties and having to deal with a lot of blowback. So politically, it was a very tough, courageous vote, but the facts that you see on the ground in the building that Patrick and I worked in, and the tweets and everything leading up to January 6th make it. And by the way, the managers of the impeachment in the Senate side so far that we've seen, I think have done a good job in laying out exactly why there is responsibility. There was provocation by the very top. And I don't think that with taking politics aside, I don't think that it would have been a very hard vote for me.
And yet it looks as though there will not be the 17 Senate votes among Republicans that would be needed for a conviction in the Senate. What message does that send about behavior, as House managers argue it sends an historic one if there's no conviction? And of course, I can see supporters of the former president listening to our broadcasting conversation saying he does not deserve that he did not tell them to go in and cause a riot. Your take on that, and then you, Mr. Murphy. First you, Mr. Rooney.
There is some validity to the fact that this is moving very quickly, and that normally what we would see is a full-blown trial. We would see hearings in the Judiciary Committee. We would see witnesses that would take a long time. Now, we don't have that luxury because of the timing of when this happened as the president was going out the door. So the big question constitutionally is, does that excuse him? And there's been a lot of good back and forth as to whether or not somebody that's impeached leaves office constitutionally. Does the Senate still have the ability to convict? And there's questions on both sides of that. I believe that they can, based on precedent and the text. But again, we get back to members of the Senate who are very concerned about re-election, that are very concerned about upsetting their base. They want to use a procedural excuse for why this isn't constitutional because he's not even president anymore. That's an easy out. And that's one that you're going to see a lot take. But we have seen a couple get, come to the side of the managers. But you're right. I don't think that we're going to get to 17.
Mr. Murphy, the supporters of the president say that he, in this now famous or infamous remarks, depending on your point of view, of January 6th, said the word peacefully, go there, be peaceful. House managers say that's not enough, that he had the match, had the gasoline, and lit the insurrection, as they put it, against the U.S. Capitol, against American democracy. Your take on what is likely to be the outcome in the Senate, and your thoughts about what it says in terms of the longer view.
Yeah, I mean, think about how he even got to January 6th, though, Michael. Literally the president and his most ardent supporters trying to overturn democracy, right? There was zero evidence of fraud by all sorts of independent, folks that looked into this, including our own agencies that looked into any sort of fraud, found none. The president was trying to overturn the Electoral College, right? A staple of our democracy for years, and riling up his supporters to do something that was completely unheard of, unconscionable, really, when you think about what really happened there. So that in itself, should be, I think, looked at. And as Congressman Rooney mentioned, the Republican senators aren't arguing that piece of it. They're trying to look for a scapegoat. Can you even do this, and find some easy off-ramp? And the truth is exactly what Congressman Rooney just said. It's all about re-elections, right? We have a much bigger problem in our country right now, in my opinion. And actually talked about it in my book recently that I wrote with Congressman David Jolly, a former Republican congressperson, where we outline the 9 fundamental problems in our democracy that are driving and incentivizing this polarized environment we live in right now. Talking about the gerrymandering, where the incentive is to appeal to a extreme 10 or 15% of your base in either party. The money in politics, billions of dollars being spent with all sorts of lies and nonsense. The media, and I don't mean you, Michael, but you look at how many different types of media outlets there are, and not even TV, the social media and these chat rooms that people are taking as factual, right? And there's no more consensus on what the truth is. All sorts of different facts out there. And then some more, sort of nuanced problems we have in Congress that Tom and I could go on all day about, with cameras in the committee rooms and earmarks and lobbyists and all these other issues. It paints a really scary picture for our democracy.
Mr. Murphy, former Congressman Murphy, a lot of people watch interviews like this and say, well, why do they only, and not speaking about you two specifically, but people out of Congress seem to be able to speak and have this come to Jesus moment that people in Congress never have. And people say it goes to the pressures you feel about re-election. But to the larger view, is it naive to think that we can somehow get back to a less polarized environment, a far less partisan environment? Or is this the new reality, the new normal we're going to live with? Your thoughts and your closing thoughts, and then we'll let Mr. Rooney offer his thoughts on that same thing.
I'm generally an optimist, Michael, but I've become more pessimistic. When I was in Congress starting in 2012, I thought that was as bad as it could ever get. It couldn't possibly get worse after the Tea Party and everything else, but it's gotten a lot worse. I think we have, number one, a macro overarching issue in the world, and this technological revolution we're living in, where millions of people are being displaced. It's very similar to the Industrial Revolution. We had all sorts of changes in the world. I think we're living through very difficult times with a lot of uncertainty. Then you add in some of these factors that I mentioned earlier, where the incentive, because of our broken system, our broken structure, is to be more extreme. If we don't fix that structure and those foundational problems, members of Congress, senators, candidates, et cetera, are going to continue going to their extreme base to get elected and then to stay in office. And that's something that can be changed and should be changed.
Mr. Murphy, former Congressman Patrick Murphy, representing District 18, 2 terms there. Mr. Rooney, former Congressman Rooney, your thoughts as you close this out. The perspective I asked Mr. Murphy about, is there any way to get back to what might be defined or used to be defined as some sense of consistent bipartisanship, some sense of civility in our politics and our understanding and reaching across the fences, not just in Congress, but as we do with one another as neighbors, as people who talk to each other or more often talk at each other. Now, what are your thoughts, and is there any prescription for change you think might work, sir?
Or even family members, as a lot of us have seen. But I agree with Patrick. I mean, even though Patrick came in around the time of the Tea Party movement and things were very polarized, people like Patrick Murphy and Tom Rooney got along offline very well. I don't even think that's true anymore. I think that members of Congress genuinely don't trust each other, don't, become friends in a more traditional sense. But I think, to answer your question, Michael, it's going to take leadership from somebody that can sell hope and bipartisanship in a way that counters what we read on social media that drives everybody crazy and makes everything outrageous. You got to get to a saturation point where I'm just sick of being outraged all the time. And somebody with a voice, it could be Biden, it could be a Republican, who knows, but I would like to see Joe Biden, who is more of the traditional bipartisan politician, try to bring more people like me into the fold and promote a bipartisan way forward. I don't like how this COVID relief package has started because, again, I think Biden wanted it to be more bipartisan, but it seems like it's going to be more, it's my way or the highway. He has a real chance to change that. Let's hope that he can be the catalyst to do that. But I also am pessimistic with cable news and social media that the easy way out for a lot of people to get popular is to say crazy stuff and make people hate each other and go down rabbit holes that are just impossible to get out of. And that's very unfortunate. So we need a good, strong leader to bring us away from that. I don't know who it is, but hopefully it happens soon.
Sobering perspectives. Ahead, our roundtable reacts, and its perspective to the debate is added about where we're going.